So with that, I will again welcome you all. Thank you all for coming out. You know, we do town halls like this and open houses across the district. The 57th State Senate District is rather large. It's one of the largest, about 4,500 square miles. It covers 5 counties: Chautauqua, Cattaraugus, the western half of Allegheny, Genesee, and Wyoming counties. So it's a big it's a big district, and I have the miles on my car to prove it. But I enjoy getting around and doing all these things, and just having the opportunity to speak with, and things like this, going to, you know, openings of new businesses. I'm a small business owner myself. I think some of you know that. My wife and I are in the restaurant business, so I know how difficult it is, how challenging it is, particularly here in New York State, to operate a business. So I appreciate people that are willing to invest and take a risk, as well as everyone else in the community, people that do things that are, somebody feedback, and I appreciate all the people in the community that volunteer their time, do things to make this community better. I really do appreciate that. That's why I want to have these opportunities to have this dialogue. So you know, there's a few things I want to talk about just to kind of open things up. You know, right now in New York, we've got a lot of challenges. One of probably the biggest challenges right now is you know, the fact that our economy here is faltering a bit, and a lot of it has to do with bad policy. I think you all know right now that as of January 1st, you will no longer be able to build a new home in New York State using natural gas or propane. Now think about that. Western New York relies on natural gas. The first natural gas well ever drilled anywhere was in Fredonia, my hometown. And yet, as of January 1st, you will not be able to use natural gas. And then 5 years down the road, we're going to discontinue natural gas essentially for everyone. That's a problem. I know there are folks out there who feel that climate change is something that needs to be addressed by doing this, but I don't believe that. I also don't believe that we should be doing irresponsible things. You know, one of my colleagues said, I think it's a great quote, you know, when you're building a new bridge, you don't take down the old one first before you build the new one. And that's kind of what's happening here. We have this irresponsible push, and these goals, these climate goals, that, quite frankly, goals are not plans. And that's the problem. There are no plans to achieve these radical goals. So you can like them, you can think they're good, but there's no plan to actually achieve them. We're seeing huge deficits. You know, we have a huge budget here in New York State. You know, it's more than $250 billion, $254 billion. And yet I speak to people every single day that don't get proper support from New York State. Hospitals and nursing homes that don't get enough reimbursements. You know, people that deal with mental health services, people that deal with children, you know, disabilities, and none of them are getting the support that they need from New York State to deliver those services. So how can we spend this much money and have so many agencies critical to survival for New York to thrive, to not have the proper funding? I don't have the exact question for you, but I can tell you it has a lot to do with too many special interests, too much waste, fraud, and abuse, and certainly, you know, too many people that believe that their cause, no matter how frivolous it might be, deserves funding. And instead of kind of looking at things from a holistic view, we kind of look at things from a political view. And that's unfortunately how a lot of the money is doled out in New York State. We spend more per capita on things like Medicaid than any other state in the nation. And yet we still have people that go without. So that's a challenge that we have to face. And it's concerning for me to see these issues, you know, essentially kind of creeping up when we're spending more money. If spending money made your state better and more affordable, we would be the best, most affordable state in the country, but we're not. So that's just a fact. We spend the most per capita. So with that, I think I'll actually ask Assemblyman Molitor to say a few words, if he doesn't mind. And you're gonna get a 2-for-1 tonight. We're gonna get Assemblyman Molitor as well to answer some questions as well.
So I'm not going to take up too much time, because I know many of you are here to ask questions, and that's where we want to go. We want to ask questions. You know, I want to echo George just a little bit in the sense that my office is here to serve you. I've made that clear from day one, that I work for you. And so if there's an issue that you're dealing with, and it is an issue that involves state bureaucracy, please contact our office so that we can help you. If it's not an issue that deals with state bureaucracy, contact us anyway, and we'll try to get you to the right place. That's what we're here for. We have an open door policy. It's your office, not mine. And second to that, I think obviously political violence is something that's on everybody's mind right now for a lot of reasons. And, I'm sure we're going to get into that at some point. But all of you here today represent what's good about America, right? We probably all have different political views, different opinions, but we're all here in the same room to discuss issues. And that's something that should be celebrated. So I thank all of you for being here today. And I thank Senator Borrello for having us.
Thank you, Assemblyman. And also, just to follow up a little bit, a real quick plug, yes, the best thing that we do, people always ask, like, I go to schools and stuff, and in fact, even today I was at Westfield School, and the question from the kids is always like, what's the worst part of the job? What's the best part of the job? The best part of the job is the fact that we have the ability to help someone who has got caught up in the red tape of government. And in many cases, they've given up hope that anything can improve, and we're able to cut through that red tape for them. That is the best part of the job. Going to Albany and debating bills, all that, that's the stuff that ends up in the paper, but helping someone who truly had no place else to go is what we do really, really well. And I would encourage you, if you have an issue, no matter what level, no matter what it's about, contact us and we'll do the best we can to help you, and that is the best part of the job. So with that, we can go into some questions.
All right. David asks, as a father, uncle, and father-in-law of law enforcement officers, I'm deeply invested. Due to inept and incompetent leadership in Albany, plus the gaslighting and lying of the media, my concerns have grown. My question to you is, as a father, uncle, and father-in-law, what recourse do we have to force the hand of Albany, especially when it comes to bail reform?
Yeah. I would just say it's the dysfunction in Albany when it comes to law enforcement and public safety, and the fact that we have a lot of political gaslighting that demonizes law enforcement. I think that kind of summarizes the question. And I agree. Unfortunately, we do. Here in New York State, we have seen certainly a rash of what I would call anti-public safety elements. Everything from what we've seen in our prisons, the horrific things that we've seen in our prisons, the revolving door criminal justice system that has allowed multiple repeat offenders to just go in, go out. I mean, in many cases, the person that was arrested, sometimes for violent crimes, is back on the street before the paperwork is finished that the police officer is filling out. And it has created big spikes in crime. But most importantly, how do people in New York State feel? They don't feel good about it. The majority of people fear that they will be a victim of crime. Even in New York City, they fear being a victim of crime. And quite frankly, right now, people don't feel safe riding on public transportation. They don't feel safe walking down the streets of their communities. That's a problem. And that's you may debate it. You can cite some statistics from the Brennan Center or whatever you want. But the reality is, until people feel safe, we are not going to be able to improve things here in New York. We're not going to be able to get people to invest here. I mean, we just saw this the Business Council did a one-year extensive study of businesses that are basically saying New York is uninvestable and that they're looking to move their businesses to expand elsewhere. Now again, you can debate it, you can cherry pick statistics, that's what they feel. In fact, I don't have the statistics here somewhere, but so was it 2%? 2% of the businesses that they surveyed, only 2% think that the state legislature is working to improve the business climate. And it's all single digits on pretty much everything. Only 21% of those businesses surveyed think New York is moving in the right direction. That's a serious problem. All the wonderful things that you want government to do for you are funded by taxes. Taxes paid by income tax, taxes on the security transactions, and the money that's spent to New York. Agriculture, which is actually New York's #1 industry. All those things cannot thrive if people don't have that basic insurance that they will be safe. And we have a political system that is encouraging the demonizing of public safety. And that is a problem. And since we have a former district attorney now turned state assemblyman, would you like to weigh in on that?
Yes, please. Yes, please. So, and I was a former defense attorney as well. And I can tell you that bail reform is an unmitigated disaster. It's a huge problem for a number of reasons, all right? First of all, it's a lie. When you hear that crime is going down because of bail reform, that is a lie. Go look at the crime index. The Division of Criminal Justice Services. Crime in New York City is 20 years, is the highest it's been in 20 years. It's been steadily increasing across the state since 2019, which is when that law went into effect. And I saw it every day. I mean, put statistics aside, okay? Someone gets charged with a crime, a low-level offense. They have substance abuse issues or mental health issues. They don't get the help they need. They get released. They go commit a more serious crime. It's not quite a violent felony. They get released again, and then what happens? They commit a third offense, and it's always worse. It's always worse. You know, we had it in this county. We had Randy Rollison. He killed that young woman in a semi-truck she was crossing the street. He crushed her. He killed her. He got released by the judge, and then however many months later, he killed a woman coming home from her grandkid's birthday party in Arkwright. So, you know, the statistics show that it doesn't work, but you know what? Put a name with the statistics. Just one is bad. Just one. If we could have prevented one death by having a well-written law, that's on everybody who voted for that law. That's on everybody.
How would you suggest to rewrite that law?
Good question. I actually have a bill to rewrite it. And I'll give you the bill number. But one of the biggest problems is that the judges don't have discretion. You'll hear the governor say, we just need the judges to enforce this law properly. But you know what? It's easy to blame judges for things. Because guess what judges can't do? They're not allowed, under their ethics rules, to comment publicly about cases. So they can't tell you what the problem with the law is, because they can't say it. They're not allowed to do it. So what we need to do is we need to give judges specific factors for them to consider in determining whether bail is proper or not. And we need to expand the number of eligible offenses. Somebody who's on parole or probation who commits a new crime, they shouldn't get released. That's common sense.
And just want to expand on that, that answer. First of all, I've said this in the past, I'm not going to rewrite their crappy law. We need to repeal bail reform, start over. Start with a conversation with all the stakeholders, including law enforcement, which were not consulted, and absolutely rewrite this law the right way. But in the meantime, repeal it. We have questions here.
Yes, we do. Karen wants to know, how are we going to get energy in Dunkirk reactivated as a gas-fired power plant soon?
Well, I'd love to see that. That is certainly the study that we did that was funded actually back when I was county executive says exactly that the best, highest use of that property is to restore it to making energy and with natural gas. Now, I know that unfortunately that is a non-starter in Albany to repower it with natural gas. So, you know, what can we do? Well, I think we need to change that policy first and foremost, because the reality is we're doing nothing here, quite honestly, to combat climate change. All this stuff is just a bunch of virtue signaling, expensive boondoggles. We're importing more power now in New York State than we ever have. On high demand days, we're importing more power than we are producing. And where's it coming from? Well, lots of coal-fired plants, old-fashioned, dirty coal-fired plants in places like in Ohio and Pennsylvania. So we're actually gone backwards. If we had repowered those plants, Dunkirk and Tonawanda, with natural gas, if we hadn't shut down Indian Point Nuclear, which provided 20% of New York City's power load, we wouldn't have to be importing all this power. So that we can pretend that we're zero emission here. We're not. Okay, this is not the path. The responsible path, like I said before, don't burn down the bridge before you build the new one. And that's what we've done here in New York State. So we should repower with natural gas. Now, a proposal that we talked about extensively, because the IDA, the county, NYSERDA, they have been on this topic. We had a meeting a couple months ago, where we talked about this specifically. And the idea was floated that if you really dislike natural gas that much, we could do it for a finite period of time, whatever would be the payback period, 15 years, 20 years of natural gas, with a solution at the end of something like a small modular nuclear reactor. So you could eventually become zero emission. But other than that, we will not and cannot power New York State simply on wind and solar. But unfortunately, that is what most of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle think is the solution. But there isn't an engineer, there isn't a scientist, there isn't an energy expert that agrees with them. Okay, even the folks in NYSERDA said we have to find other sources of baseload power, reliable power. But that isn't good enough. They think they're going to do it on wind, solar, and battery storage. It's not going to happen. We need a better, more reliable way to provide power. And the problem now is look at the governor. The governor, in my opinion, is throwing her Hail Mary pass. She's saying she's now talking about nuclear power. That's her Hail Mary pass because she knows that beginning next year, the New York State Independent System Operators are talking about rolling blackouts, intentional blackouts, because we don't have enough power to supply New York State. So she's saying, well, now we got to look at nuclear power. Okay, well, that's great, but where have you been the last 5 years? Because nuclear power is probably a 5 to 10 year minimum turnaround time before we have nuclear power online. So if that's the solution that she wants to propose, we're way late in the game. And I think that's why she's going into an election year next year, and she's looking at the possibility of not having enough power to power New York State's needs. And now she's trying to figure out alternatives, which I support, but it's a little late in the game to do so. Yes?
Different topic.
Okay.
Local topic.
You got two hands right there, you're not gonna.
We're going through the questions that people submitted.
This hasn't been off what you're speaking of.
Okay.
Then you're gonna have a dialogue, right?
What's
Part
that?
of the reason that we do the written
Yeah.
questions is because there's such a large crowd, and oftentimes some voices will be more vocal than others, and that's part of the reason we do these written questions, so everybody has a chance to ask.
And if we just keep ripping off the same, question, yeah, okay.
I was gonna go to
What's that?
Joanne's about local transportation next. If Joanne doesn't want her question asked, but I have a feeling Joanne would like to hear the side of the
That's
answer.
fine. I didn't know you had that for me.
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Sal, over here has more written questions I'm about to give in hand, and I think there's a clipboard also going around.
Yeah.
So please feel free to write your question down. Joanne, now that there's no longer bus service out of Jamestown to Erie or Buffalo, county residents who have no cars cannot reach needed services. Are there any plans to improve transportation? Jamestown is isolated.
Yeah, and that's certainly an important issue. I know that the county is focused on this, the county executive, we've had that discussion. There's talks about, how do we expand cart service, but really having a bus like I think it was a Trailways bus or one of those buses that was going from here to Buffalo and then other points beyond. Yeah, absolutely, that is an issue. I would say we have an issue in general with transportation. We don't have a rail station here up in, we'd love to have an Amtrak stop. We'd love to have more solutions. Again, what I've said before is, how can we have this much money spent on our budget and yet so many needs that aren't being met? And that's a concern, for sure. So I agree with you. I know that the county executive and county government is concerned about that, and it is something that we should absolutely need to address.
So what are you going to do about it?
Look, this is not a solution right here at the moment. You can't make Trailways or anyone else show up, but it is something that there's a discussion that has to be had. How do we find that solution? Is it working with NFTA out of Buffalo? Do we get them to come down here and make a stop down here? There are a lot of solutions that can be addressed.
So what are you going to do?
We've already had those discussions. So my question is, are the folks that are concerned, have you reached out? Have you written to the county executive, you talked to your legislator? Please do. Let them know that there is a need there, for sure.
All right. David said, you have gone on record in support of the Texas AG's lawsuit against an Ulster County doctor. What do you think Texas state law should trump those of New York in regards to the abortion?
Yeah, I think it's the opposite, actually. So my concern was this. This was an Ulster County clerk that was refusing to file a claim. If this was a claim that was made by a mortgage company out of Texas, there would have been no issue. The fact that that clerk chose, for political reasons, for her own personal political ideology, to not file that claim, I think is a problem, because she's an elected public servant. So the issue for me is not so much about whether or not the AG in Texas is doing the right thing. This should be an equal, the law should be applied equally, not based on where your political views are. Like I said, that's the job as the clerk. That's the job of the clerk.
Texas has no power in your state.
All they're doing is filing a claim. Okay, I'm saying to you that New York State taxpayer dollars should not go to support someone who is making a political move.
What about women's rights?
This is not about women's rights. I'm saying very simply, no one should be, the county clerk, the county clerk did not file the claim. That's my issue. That is not something that's a political move. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
I got it. They gave me a second microphone. So you bring up the SHIELD law, right? And the SHIELD law protects New York doctors who are operating in New York, right? Who are providing reproductive services like abortion in New York. Problem in this particular case is the New York doctor prescribed abortion medication to somebody in Texas. All right? Let's put abortion aside. If you commit a crime...
It's a medication.
Hold on a
You're allowed to
second.
prescribe
Hold on a second.
medication across state.
Hold on a second. Let me answer the question. Because part of having a respectful dialogue is listening, talking and listening, right?
That's all we've been doing. That's all we've been able to talk. Ain't nobody been able to answer nothing.
You asked a question and now we're answering.
We've been trying to ask questions. Y'all keep shutting us down from answering anything.
Well, no, actually, now what you're doing is called interrupting.
Well, that's what you did to us.
Listen, the problem with this particular case is a New York doctor did something in Texas, which in Texas is illegal, right? It's no different than somebody, going to Texas and committing a crime or committing a malpractice in Texas.
No.
It's the exact same thing. The U.S. Constitution grants full faith and credit between the states. New York can't shield its citizens
The
from
U.S.
committing
Constitution
crimes
is for the
in
American
another
citizens.
state. They can't do that. It's unconstitutional.
It's not for the states. It's for the American
unconstitutional,
citizens.
And Texas should be permitted
our
to
God-given
enforce its own
right.
law. Its own law.
You can
I'll keep
get
the
back to
microphone.
Thank you. Thank you for the political, the legal angle for that question. Thank
All right, I'm
you.
going to go to another question.
All right.
Ida said, I'm concerned about young people leaving. Is there a plan to combat youth out-migration?
Well, I think a lot of people are leaving, young and old, unfortunately. Young people don't see opportunity here. You have people now that are following their children when they retire or whatever because their kids aren't here. It's a big problem. New York State leads the nation in out-migration. It's another thing that we're number one at that I wish we weren't. So it's a huge issue. I will tell you that when I was county executive, I did a tour of businesses, 100 businesses in 100 days. We actually got to 107 businesses in my first 100 days in office. And counter to the I guess the political mantra that there's no jobs here, what I found out was there's lots of jobs here. What we don't have is a qualified workforce to fill those positions. Someone that can show up to work at the same time every day and pass a drug test. Those are the concerns that those businesses shared with me. And we kept a list of the open positions. So there were actually 767 open positions at the 107 businesses that I visited. So the solution there is we need to have better job training. I'm a big proponent, and I've worked with JCC and others to get the kids into skilled trades and applied sciences. Those are the needs at these manufacturing companies. You can have a great life and a great job, a well-paying job that you can raise a family on in the skilled trades and applied sciences, and those are skills that are available at our local community colleges. In fact, a lot of these businesses I visited, there were great stories. Someone who started off working on the shop floor that now owns the company. Including Fancher Chair, I might add, the oldest manufacturing company in America. That's right here in the Jamestown area. So I think the path for us is to focus on those skills, to train kids, to fill the jobs that are here available right now. Economic development, we're often chasing dreams, right? We want to have this AI hub, and we want to have the next Amazon warehouse, and but the reality is we're good at a lot of things here: manufacturing, food processing, agriculture. We should be training our kids to fill those jobs because every single place that I go to has a need. Healthcare is another huge issue. We don't have enough folks in healthcare. So we want to keep our kids here. Let's encourage them to get into the jobs that are well-paying, that'll keep them right here in our area. That to me is the best solution. Anything you want to add to that?
You nailed it.
All right, Carl wants to know, what have you done or could you do to help fight against the wetlands designation and regulations that are harming Chautauqua Lake properties for tourism? And I think both of you gentlemen have a very
Yeah, we both, yeah. Well, I will say that I have a bill that would exempt navigable waterways over 150 acres from those wetland designations. There's been a lot more disturbing information, I would say, that's come out lately. Right now, the rumors are worse than the truth, but the rumors are having an impact. Again, perception versus reality. The rumors and perception of what these wetland regulations are is actually worse than what the reality is, but it is having somewhat of a negative impact on property values and so forth. So it needs to be addressed. I'm hoping that we can continue to push forward to try to get that exemption, and we will try again in the coming new session.
Yeah, and as many of you know, there's a lawsuit that's been filed by a number of lake organizations, business communities within our district and across the state to challenge the DEC's interpretation of those freshwater wetland regulations, which are, according to the plaintiffs, more expansive than what the statute actually says. And probably tomorrow morning we will have filed an amicus brief, Senator Borrello and I, in support of the plaintiffs in that lawsuit. So we hope that the court will read the amicus brief and rule in favor of the plaintiffs.
It took you a long time. It took you a long time. Too long.
Well, again, there are a large group of people that are working on this to try to basically push back. But the reality is, we need change in Albany.
Yeah, but we're unorganized. We are unorganized. Not unorganized. Excuse me. We are privately funded, just like self-funded 501c3s that are trying to save this lake and save this community. Why aren't you, as our representatives, doing that for us?
We absolutely are. There are plenty of indications that I can show you the things that we have done, but this is not something that happens overnight. It passed in a budget in 2022, which I voted against, and it is now implemented. So we have to continue to push back, and I'm hoping that the federal government can get involved as well. We can have the Army Corps of Engineers, hopefully, to step in and provide a little bit of common sense and balance to what the DEC and what's happening out of Albany. So
I hope so.
We've been pushing in Albany too. I mean,
yes.
This year we made a push on Senator Borrello's bill on the Assembly side to get it into committee, because it's got to pass through committee first, and the committee decided that they weren't going to take it up. They voted to not even take it up and not even have a discussion about it. So
right.
We need to do all we can, and we are doing all we can.
Yeah, and let me also add, that this year the DEC issued more permits for herbicide applications than they ever have. And that is certainly progress.
That's just a safe face.
Well, yeah, but look, none of us are happy about it, but we are doing what we can. And so far, like I said, the impact has been, not the real impact of this has not been what the perception has been so far. How many written questions? We want to take a break and get some questions from the audience?
We can take a couple.
All right.
We do have several written ones.
All right, I want to get to those because I think people took the time, but...
Yeah, if somebody wants to ask a question. Justin, I know you're just chomping at the bit.
No, I just want somebody to take these.
Oh,
Yeah,
questions.
oh,
All right.
and I'll go right
You want
to-
to... Since you took the trouble of writing it down, you can read it if you want, though.
Thank you very much. Senator Borrello, I appreciate you coming here and speaking with us.
Thank you.
Representative Nick Langworthy will not meet with us, so I appreciate very much. Reference, my concern is health care. I believe I heard you say you were in Westfield today.
Yes, I was at the Westfield Academy School.
Are you concerned about the impact of this Republican bill that will take away SNAP funding, will take away their rural hospital?
I don't think it's going to take away our rural hospital. So I've addressed that. I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead and finish what you were saying. I'm sorry.
My concern is that we're in a depressed area.
Yeah.
We are a high Medicaid area.
Yes.
Cattaraugus, Chautauqua County. We are at very high risk of losing healthcare services for a large amount of our population.
Yeah, so as far, again, I think you're all aware, obviously, that I'm not in the federal government, but I want to address these cuts because I think it's important. I think that, the cuts right now, there's, the governor is, hand-wringing over the $750 million that is being cut, but she is continuing to ignore the calls to address the waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid. I've been talking about this since I was county executive, and that is a real issue. The state comptroller has called it out multiple times. He just put out a report that $1.2 billion was paid to out-of-state people that don't qualify to receive Medicaid. That alone is a problem.
50 years,
You-
and I have not seen a patient. I see
There
patients sometimes.
there is more than enough waste, fraud. If we address just a portion of the waste, fraud, and abuse in Medicaid, it would erase all of the cuts from the federal government. Absolutely would. Absolutely would. And that's the purpose of the cuts. The federal government borrows money every year to provide services. Last year it borrowed $2 trillion with a T. It is not the responsibility of the taxpayers and the federal government to borrow money to cover for waste, fraud, and abuse in states like New York. I'm sorry, it's not. It's time to address the waste, fraud, and abuse. I would say that exactly what I'm saying to you right now. If we addressed the waste, fraud, and abuse, is anyone familiar with my conversations I've had on non-emergency medical transportation, NEMT? It's a multi-billion-dollar boondoggle. You've all seen those taxis driving around, like a Buffalo airport taxi that's down in Jamestown, picking people up. That was a scheme put together by Andrew Cuomo back when I was in the county government, and it was continued under Kathy Hochul, and it has wasted billions upon billions of Medicaid dollars. We are paying taxi drivers, in some cases, $300 or $400 to transport one patient for one medical appointment. But prior to that, it was run by the counties. It was dispatched, but prior to that, it was dispatched by the counties. And when they went from the county dispatch and county control to having it dispatched by transportation brokers, just the cost in Chautauqua County alone went up by 1,300%, and is wasting hundreds of millions of dollars a year across the state. The AG has been prosecuting people because we've been bringing this up, we've been calling it out, and finally, there were several major cases over the last year, and she's trying to recover money, but it costs money for that. I think she's recovered close to $1 billion already just for the lawsuits, just for the prosecution so far. So it's a huge problem, but you can't. It's whack-a-mole. You can't address all of the waste, fraud, and abuse in a system that was designed to create waste, fraud, and abuse. We have to reform the system. I want to go back to having the counties dispatch it. That is a more responsible way to do it. That will save money, and once again, right there is more than enough money to cover those federal cuts.
You guys are cutting SNAP from people. Why is it America and Israel were the only countries to say that it wasn't a God-given right for Americans or for people to have food, and it's on record with the UN?
Is that a question?
Yes, that's a question.
What's the question?
Why are people cutting SNAP funding then?
I'm not cutting SNAP funding, but once again, there are billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse in the system in New York State. New York State spends more money per person than any other state in the country, and yet we provide less service. That's about, yes, ma'am.
Well, you mentioned this boondoggle of having
Yes.
to pay the tax.
Would you mind using this?
Oh, sure. Sorry about that. Yeah,
Anything you want to add?
having to take a taxi to get to Buffalo is crazy.
Yes, it is.
But
Thank you.
let's talk back to the lack of transportation.
We have a system here in New York, right here, the CART system now called CHQ Transit, that transported those people. And that money also subsidized the CHQ Transit budget. And now, let me finish, these transportation companies figured out quickly that the longer the trip was, the more money that they made. And they're also big donors to the governor. And they're making a lot of money now by sending a Buffalo airport taxi down to Dunkirk to pick up someone, or Jamestown to pick someone up and take them to a doctor appointment back in Buffalo. In some cases, they're dispatching a taxi from Buffalo down to Dunkirk to take them to an appointment in Dunkirk. It's insane. It's a huge waste of money. And there's no justification for it. Like I said, the state comptroller has called it out. I've called it out since, again, being in county government. I mean, this is not a partisan issue. This is pretty simple. You are wasting hundreds of millions of dollars a year on a program that is designed to be fraudulent.
Can carts take somebody all the way to Buffalo?
They've got special transports. They have special transports. They have special transports.
That goes back to her question.
If we take somebody from Dunkirk on carts to an appointment in Jamestown or vice versa, that could be done. That's not being done right now. They're dispatching taxis from Buffalo to come down.
I'm going to take one up back, sir. Hang on 1 second, I'm coming to you. I want somebody in the back to have an opportunity to ask their question as well.
So along the lines of this transportation, people have to get to their appointments. How do you build the bridge to get them to their appointments first before tearing it down with cuts to our healthcare system?
Well, the bridge was already there. The bridge was already there. We had a system that was functioning well, and Andrew Cuomo changed it. So that is, the bridge is to go back to the original bridge that unfortunately the governor burned down before he put this new one in place. And that's the real problem here. We are wasting money, and this is true, unfortunately, of a lot of programs. We are wasting money, it's not being addressed, and instead of fixing the problem, we're just saying we need to heap more money onto this. That's not the solution. And this is the problem that we have. Look, you have business owners, of which I am one, that are finding it almost impossible to do business here because of the oppressive taxes and regulations. Yet we continue to heap things on those businesses that are paying. I know you want to roll your eyes because you don't think it's important that businesses are able to make a profit so they can pay taxes, but that's a real issue.
Just stop, I was not rolling my eyes. I was.
Okay, I heard your eyes roll, actually. It was, yeah, go ahead.
Just have an opportunity to lower our sales tax, and all the Republicans voted against it, and the Democrats voted for it. That's different from you, I understand that, but you guys have all these different levels of representation, and I'm not sure what you all do. So please tell me.
Tell me what we do?
Yes, as a representative. I don't know how people get, but we have all these different levels. Do you work with the county legislature that meets tonight in Mayville?
Well, obviously tonight we didn't coordinate because they're meeting in Mayville, and they're actually the county executive is making his budget presentation. Yeah, look, there are obviously various. I work very closely with the county executive, particularly when we start talking about things that impact the county, whether it's trying to support economic development initiatives, the concerns that we have around Chautauqua Lake. I mean, the county executive and I, myself, Assemblyman Molitor, we do work together well. And the challenges, of course, all the challenges that we all deal with, which is essentially the unfunded mandates that burden county government. I mean, 50 cents of every property tax dollar paid in New York State, in Chautauqua County, not New York State. 50 cents of every property tax dollar paid here in Chautauqua County goes just to cover the local share of Medicaid. That should trouble you. And New York State is the last state in the nation that actually burdens local governments with a local share of Medicaid. If that's...
The total is $8 billion paid by county residents for Medicaid, which is more than every other county in the nation combined.
So you have to look at this. Is this a program that we want to continue to encourage waste, fraud, and abuse in when it's having an impact on your property taxes? We also have the safety net. The safety net is after 5 years of being on whatever program, assistance program you're on, the federal government says no more. You are cut off. But in New York, we have something called the safety net, which means you can go on indefinitely. And that is covered, 71% is covered by state and local taxes. That's a problem. Those are the kind of things that have to be addressed.
Yeah, they built in fiscal cliffs, so as people try to better themselves and improve their lives, they lose all their benefits. What we need to do is we need to find a way to help people ease themselves off benefits. And there's right now a pilot program that was, the genesis of the idea came from my predecessor, Andy Goodell, and right now they're implementing it in Monroe County to see how they can avoid fiscal cliffs so that people can ease their way off of benefits.
Excuse me, could you read a little more slowly? We
Yes.
have understanding.
All right, Kathy, what is being done for helping neighborhoods to improve? She's talking about drug dealing, rundown houses owned by LLCs, and absent landlords. And then she also mentioned homeless people breaking into homes and stealing. Was that better? Okay.
She does talk fast, I'm not going to lie. So you want to go ahead?
Yeah, let me start with drug dealing. So one of the crimes that is no longer bail eligible is criminal sale of a controlled substance. Not somebody who's possessing it, not somebody who's using it because they're an addict, somebody who purposefully and intentionally sells drugs to another person. So what has happened now is you have drug dealers who are selling drugs like fentanyl, and drug dealers, they might buy more than one house, right? They have a stash house, a party house, and a house that they sell out of, right? And it's easy for them to do so here in parts of our county. We need to make it harder for them. And one of the ways that we can make it harder for them is make criminal sale, which by the way is a B-level felony, a bail-eligible offense. And then prosecute those individuals for selling drugs and send them to state prison.
So with bail reform though, so these people are let out without bail, correct?
Yeah.
But then they're still prosecuted.
Yeah, but sometimes they reoffend multiple times before their first, before they get to their first trial.
Okay, but in the long term, we are not just arresting people and then letting them go and then nothing happens. They are arrested. Some of them meet the bail reform. They're let go, but then eventually they are prosecuted.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to say,
you should let someone else take a turn.
Go ahead.
what I'm saying is, I would have loved it if you would have posted something that brings more people together and that has a bit of empathy for teachers as well as those kids. Because I totally give you this. If you're going up there and you're doing your political rhetoric and you're trying to indoctrinate the students, absolutely get out of here.
I agree. I'm glad we could agree on that. Absolutely. So, you know, you weren't talking about bringing things together. Let me finish. Let me address your point. So Kathy Hochul, in her response to this, said she wanted to bring people together and she wanted to turn down the temperature.
I'm not talking about
I'm going to give you my response. In that, she said she brought together Republicans and Democrats to talk about how we could turn down the temperature. And I agree, we need to turn down the temperature. And then the first question from the media was, well, when you were talking about the situation with the Texas redistricting, you said, we are at war. Do you regret saying that? And she dodged the question. She wouldn't say. That was her opportunity, by the way, because she called this group together to dial down the temperature and say, you know what, in light of what's happened, yes, I do regret saying that in that context. She did not do that. So when you say you want to bring down the temperature, is it that you want us to just stand down and disarm? No, we're going to speak the truth.
So at some point, to bring down the temperature, someone would need to do that. I'm not talking to Catholic people right now.
I know. I stand by my statement. I certainly do everything that I can to ensure that people understand that everyone has a right to speak. That's why I'm here tonight. And everyone has a right to voice their opinion. But when they do so in a threatening manner, and they do so in a way that I think, you know, negatively influences children who they are sworn to teach and treat well, that is a problem, and that will always be a problem for me. All right, we're going to move on because we're running out of time.
Yes, we are. So I'm going to ask another one now. You're feeling on electric vehicles and electric school buses, and then
we don't have that kind of time.
And then how much energy do wind turbines store? We haven't talked about wind turbines tonight, so I think.
Well, they don't store anything. So my concern with electric vehicles in general is that we just don't have the power to do this. We don't have the infrastructure. We do not. I did an op-ed piece that the Buffalo News published a couple years ago where I talked about how we can have a balanced approach to this, how we can have multiple sources of energy, but we do need lower emission like natural gas. But to say that we're going to cut everything off and that we are going to do something that not even NYSERDA has a plan to do, and we're going to put our kids on electric school buses without knowing if they can actually make the trip, particularly in the winter, that we can't afford them. No, that's a real thing. I know you. Sure, it's not a problem. But here's the thing: I have a bill that would replace the mandate with a pilot study. Let's test out these electric school buses in rural, suburban, and urban areas. Maybe it makes sense in New York City where the routes are a lot shorter. Maybe it doesn't make sense in an area like ours where we have bridges that can't even handle the weight of those buses. How are we going to do that? It's absolutely not. I know, but the bottom line is this. There is no plan to achieve these goals. There's no funding for those school buses. You want to talk about property taxes, all these school districts have to fund these. It's about an $8 billion difference between what they spend on school buses now and what they will spend on electric school buses. And right now the governor's offered a grand total of about $1 billion, so 1/8 of it. So, all right, go ahead.
So you guys talk about kids and you talk about the safety of citizens. This is discussing like bills and stuff like that, right? So with a $1 billion budget that goes to child care, right? Why is it that $5,000 is incentivized to child services for each child taken out of a home? Why is it that over 250 children a year die in child care services and in foster homes?
In New York?
In New York. This can all be found in New York State's database.
Okay, yeah.
Why is it that the children in foster homes are being harmed with such a huge bill instead of surveillance equipment being worn by your child service workers or being put in foster homes to protect them?
Okay.
Why is it when children are being transported by child services to foster homes There is not a GPS tracker in the vehicle that the state provides for the child to be transported in for the safety of that child.
Okay. All right, so you said they give a $5,000 bonus when they take someone out of a home?
Yes.
To the like a financial incentive for the person that does it?
No, it's a financial incentive for the Department of Social Services at $5,000.
So New York State gives them $5,000 every time they take someone out of a home?
Your own database in New York State shows this information.
All right. Well, I don't know if you want to address some of the issues because I'm sure you've dealt with this.
I mean, you're bringing up issues that's not there.
Or how about the fact that a foster home can negotiate how much they want to pay to take a kid in between $60 and $125 a day for a kid?
Yeah, okay. All right.
I mean,
Go ahead.
What I would say to you, I'm not aware of these issues, but my
You're not aware of this. I've been trying to address legislation for the last 2 years about this and been being blockaded.
Well, please contact my office.
I don't want to contact your office.
Well, that's how legislation gets done. That's a.
These people need a promise that you people are going to do something more to protect our kids.
Yeah. Well, look.
I don't know what I can do more to protect your kids.
Push the legislators to make them wear
I'm gonna
surveillance. Put surveillance in foster homes. Put GPS trackers on these vehicles. Make the information dump to the Department of Justice. It's that simple. There's $1 billion to be spent. You can't make them wear surveillance equipment?
No.
Where's the money going?
That's many years ago.
No, that was 3 years ago. 3 years ago.
Okay. All right. Look, we want to. Why don't we let him respond?
All the time about lowering the temperature.
Look, I got the information right here. I also have the registered voters and a list of them behind the fact of enacting this in a law. It's called Prop F5, sir. There's the information right there. A senator named Nancy Schaefer between 2002 and 2010. Hold up, I'm talking. Exposed. Hold up, I'm talking. Thank you. Between 2002 and 2010, Nancy Schaefer actually was unalive for exposing this information. Okay, she was the
All right, so it's 5 after 7. I would like to give a few more.
It's following the same model and they're not doing it.
Yeah, all right. Your freedom of speech doesn't trump everybody else's freedom of speech, okay? Let everybody else speak too, please. We want to engage this dialogue. He's taking this. Please follow up.
All right,
okay? Thank you. All right, well, we're over time, but, all right, okay, closing comments. First and foremost, I am grateful that you folks came out tonight. This is still a place where we can have open dialogue. We might not agree, but I think we do need to have, and Justin, by the way, we do need to turn down the temperature.
Absolutely.
And we do have, but we need to have meaningful dialogue. And we also have to ensure that at the end of the day, we can agree to disagree. And that ending our disagreement with violence is nothing we should agree to. We both go out all over the place. I love living here. My family's here. My businesses are here. I love representing you all. We may not disagree, but I hope at least that you respect the fact that we do things like this to ensure that at least you have the opportunity to speak with us. Our office is open. We take, whether it's an issue that you have or an opinion you want to express, this is how democracy works. And thank you very much for being here tonight. You.